Trauma oftentimes subdues one into silence, sometimes lasting an entire lifetime. 25 years on, it's time. Karen describes her 10-year marriage as harrowing, shocking, bizarre. In fact, there isn't a single word that can describe her decade-long ordeal. Stronger today, Karen is motivating thousands. This is how we cope. I'm Hugo Ribatika. Hello and welcome to another edition of Cope, where we unpack the stories that hit us the hardest. Today we are speaking to Karen. Karen, thanks so much for coming on to Cope.
Absolute pleasure.
Karen, there's something that you said when we first spoke. You said, it's time.
Yep.
It's time prefixes your story. Please tell us about that.
It's time because time doesn't stop, first of all. And time is something that also allows us to go back and to sometimes even think what's today and maybe going forward. Yeah. You know, it's been many, many years, around about 27 years that I've held this secret captive. And I did at one stage try to put it out, but it just was not the right time. But today it is. Thank you.
Well,
really.
Delighted that you've come on to Cope.
Good.
We're all ears.
All ears. Okay. So he must have been one of the most amazing, vivacious, outgoing, charismatic, good-looking man. I fell in love with him when I was 13 years old. Met him on the beach. I lived in Zimbabwe and he lived in South Africa. So it was a little childhood puppy love type thing. And then because of circumstances in Zimbabwe, I had to literally within 2 days uproot myself at 19 years old and come through to South Africa. It was a career choice, something to do with the government. And I found myself in a foreign country. My grandmother was here, I stayed with her. And the only thing that just was, to me, the most amazing thing is that this man was here that I'd met. And we used to see each other sort of once a year when I came to South Africa on holiday.
How much older than you is he?
Just 1 year.
Just 1 year.
So, yeah, we were supposedly so compatible and it was amazing. And so I kind of went against my parents' decision. I said to them, you know what, Mom and Dad, this is the man of my life. He's the man of my dreams. I want to marry him. And so the wedding was set, and it happened quite quick, because I knew I was going to be stuck in South Africa. They were there, my whole family was in Zimbabwe, so this is where I was, and this was the man of my dreams. And my mom and dad said, don't you want to wait? And I said, no, I love him. Anyway, it was just, it was a very simple wedding. My parents came down. My father said to me, he said, my girl, just remember something now. You were the youngest, and you didn't see Mom and Dad fighting, and so when you get two people, sometimes there's that knocking together of, and eventually it smooths off. So, just understand it's going to happen in marriage. Marriage was done. We went to our honeymoon. And that's where it all began.
What actually happened?
I had never really been promiscuous before my marriage, so I believe that you do that with your husband. And so this became 3 days of absolute fear. And I couldn't understand it. I thought maybe this is what my father was saying, that, but now, and obviously post that and leaving him, I realized that was rape. He raped me. He hurt me. It got to a point where now we just married, you think you're in love, everything is the most beautiful thing. And he went through my little suitcase and he saw a red dress and he looked for my petticoat. And he said, you know what, you don't have a petticoat, therefore you do not go out of this hotel room. And that's where I kind of stayed. Food was brought in, and he went out and he came back in again. When we went back and left that honeymoon, we were to stay with his parents for, I think it was 1 week, because we got married on the 24th of October. And at the end of October, we'd move into our own little flat. And what happened was we stayed in a double room on the house, and his family were there, his parents were there. And I thought, oh, geez, at least I'm going to be safe. And my parents were still in South Africa. They just wanted to say goodbye to me. And I had these love bites all over my neck, which obviously indicated...
Coming from a honeymoon?
Love, passion, awesome.
Was in the air.
Wonderful. But they didn't know what was underneath the clothing. I was too scared to tell my parents because I kept on thinking, you know. Anyway, they left, and that, I think, was the second night that we were staying at his parents' home. I was in the room, and all of a sudden he just started getting angry and hitting the walls. His wrists were, his knuckles were bleeding. He was going mad, and I went up. I was not used to this. I was brought up in an incredibly stable home, loved, honored, cherished, and all my dreams could come true. And
did you know why he was so angry?
I didn't. He just looked like he got angry about something, and he was just literally going kind of wild. So I went up to him, his wife, and said, stop, are you okay? And what he ended up doing was he grabbed me and he started beating me, and he put me over his lap, and he hit me and hit me and hit me to the point where I actually wet my pants. It was just too painful. And then I felt like I was in a scary movie. How can this be happening? And no one comes out of the room, into the room, and knocks and says, are you okay? It was like, I just didn't understand what was going on. Anyway, I just then creeped into the bed and just went quiet, because he then changed. And the following morning...
What do you mean he changed?
There was like a relax in him,
He calmed down?
He calmed down, yeah. But it was almost like a switch, calm down. Anyway, so then what happened was, in the morning, I just lay in the bed. He had to go to work, and I knew how many people in the house, and I counted cars going out, and I thought, okay, I'm free. And I kind of, when everyone was gone, I ran down the passage to my mother-in-law's room, tried to see the phone. The phone was locked, because we didn't have cell phones in those days. And then I thought, oh, well, you know what? And so what I did was I thought, I want to see my damage. And I turned around and I lifted up my shirt and pulled down my pants just to see how bad I was. And my whole bed was just, it was just a mess of bruises and mess, a real big mess. Like lashing, like really, he'd really hit me hard. And at that moment, my mother-in-law walked out of her bathroom. I thought that she had gone to work, and she said, all she did was she looked me in the eye and she said, "You're lucky it wasn't your face." And that's when I thought, oh, my Lord, what have I entered? And I was stuck.
What did that mean to you? Was it a case of, was she acknowledging that this is the life you're going to have to put up with?
I didn't read it as that. Many, many years ago, I think that's what she, when I look back, yes, and something that she said later on, I saw it as, this is norm. No one sees this as weird. I just didn't, I think I was too young and I was too naive to interpret it as anything else.
Because you were 19 then, right?
That's right. So I thought, this is it. I've got to find a way to get out, but I didn't even know where to start going, to be honest with you.
So presumably a few years later, or at some point you started a family?
I think we must have started a family almost after honeymoon. That knowing, what I've been through, that was always the worst time of my life, of the marriage, was pregnancy. From the moment you found out you're pregnant, and look, the abuse, we'll go into some of the things, the abuse just became more extreme when you are pregnant. And I've actually heard this from other people, that this sort of thing does happen. I don't know what it was, but I was 5.5 months pregnant with my first child. We were living in this silly little one-bedroom flat, an absolute, it was just like so alien to me, the way we had no furniture, had hardly anything. And what he did was, he came home the one night, he was a traffic officer, and he came home and he just was wild. And he threw me on the floor, he put a pillow over my head. Now I'm lying on my back, 5.5 months pregnant, with a pillow over my head, and I'm just like, I can feel myself passing out.
Was he trying to suffocate you?
I do believe he was. But then he also was on my stomach, and he was bouncing. So he had his pillow over here, and he was bouncing on my stomach, my baby. And then eventually, I kind of, obviously went very limp. And he went, and I just lay there, sort of pretending that I was not right. And then it wasn't much later after that, I started leaking water, which I still didn't even know really what was going on. It's my first child. But it started becoming a lot more, almost to the point where my stomach just went down, down, down. And I thought, what the hang? And I said to him, I need to go to the hospital. He went out and then he came back in. And I said, I need to go to the hospital. Something's not right. And he said, no, we're not going. You're only 5.5 months pregnant. Eventually, it was really, you could see there was something wrong. And he took me to the hospital, to Johannesburg, Jen, I don't know what it's called now. Yeah. And I was examined by a doctor and a midwife, or something like that. And they said to me, no, they're going to abort the next day. Wow. Because of infection. It was too dangerous. There was a definite leak and whatever. And I don't know, I'm not talking religion, I'm not talking anything, but my gosh, as a mother, I prayed like you cannot believe that whole night. And the following morning, it was like right through. And in the morning, they say they take you to go and have a scan, because then it leaks psychologically, you can understand there's no water and all the rest of it. And what actually happened was, I I had more water in the morning.
Oh, wow.
I had more than what I was supposed to have. They actually took photographs for the university or something, for Wits, I think. And they said it's a miracle. I mean, they don't understand. They didn't say the word miracle. It said they don't understand and you can go home. But the abuse continued terribly. Same thing happened with my second child. So 3 years later, so I've got 4 children. 3 years later, had another child. I would have an IUD, an intrauterine device, and he would decide when the next child was born. He'd have that removed, and then you fall pregnant. It just happened that I did fall pregnant. I was 6.5 months pregnant. We were home. We were leaders in the church, and he beat me.
Leaders in the church, you and your husband.
Yes,
one.
I was the wife of. He's not a pastor, but we were leaders, home cell leaders, and very involved. I was a worship singer in the same church, and what happened was he beat me that night. It was a Saturday night, and he beat me so bad. In the morning, and he always, you know, I have to say, Hugo, and this is for anyone out there, you know, you become sick in your judgment to the point where, you know, he didn't beat me that bad. You know, he's such a nice man. He only beats me below my shirt so no one sees. Because the 10 years that I was married to him, not one person knew I was being abused. Not one person. So you need to hear on the second one, being beaten to a pulp. Sitting in church, I'm in contractions. And I said to him, I need to go to hospital. He said, no, you're not going. There's nothing wrong with you. I went right through to, he had to go on duty. And I actually happened to be crawling down the passage in so much agony and said, I need to go to hospital. And he said, no, I'm not taking you. His partner happened to come and said, if you don't take her, I am. So again, this baby ended up being born at 6.5 months pregnant. Amazing. Again, they tried to stop the...
Was this your last baby?
No, second. Tried to stop it. He survived. You know, again, he stayed with me in hospital for a short time and, survived. So that's how it is when you're pregnant. But much sick abuse in between.
And with the other 2 children?
Do you know what? The third one, he seemed to have not been as abusive. But I mean, he was always abusive, but not as extreme. But the fourth one, yes. So, yeah, there was always beating, pushing, kicking, hitting, smashing you in the face. I think those are quite normal. When I say normal abuse, you know, we get beaten in the face or broken nose or broken rib. But mine was worse than that. There was a lot more than that.
But how did he handle his children?
You know what, the weirdest thing is I think because I was so, as short as I am and as big as he was, I eventually became a fighter. But I also learned to read and watch eye movement and watch movement and different things so that I could almost gather like a mother with her little chickens, you know, gather them and protect them and do things. So yes, the one child he beat badly. He would hit and throw and kick, but he used them more against me.
Hit and kick his children? Yeah,
they would get unnecessarily hit, not in a discipline way or something like that. It would be hitting, throwing at walls and, you know, that type of thing. But he would more use them as a pawn to, like he would lock them inside the bathroom, close the door, and then he would cock his gun. He's going to shoot each one of the children, you know, and I'm on the outside trying to bash the door down because he's got all the kids there. I'm going to shoot them, cock the gun.
And the children would hear this?
No, they were in the bathroom with him. He would put him and the 4 children in the bathroom wanting to kill them, and I'm on the outside, traumatized, trying to get my kids out of the bathroom. Or he'd lock me in a cupboard for 2-3 days. And the children would be out and I'd be hearing all these terrible things. So yeah, a mess.
When we come back, 10 years down the road, Karen decides to make a run for it. Stay with us. This is Cope. Thank you for staying with us. Karen is taking us through her married life. And he was the man of her dreams, so she thought, until all the abuse started, and it started 3 days into their marriage. Karen, before the break, you were telling us about the abuse that your kids were subjected to. As bad as being locked up in the bathroom with their father, by their father, him pulling out a gun and threatening to shoot them. What did that do to you, and what impact did it have on your 4 children?
You know what? So we go back 27 years. You know, so you can imagine my children, some of them, they're all in the 30s. It still affects them. You know, it still affects them. You know, today it really does. What did it do to me? I don't know. I think I became a very strong, wild woman. On the other hand, I became a very weak, weak person that took so much too. So there was almost like the contradictions, yeah. Very much so.
How do you explain the wild one?
Yeah, well, in other words, a mother will do anything to fight for her kids. So that's what I did, yeah. And they were little. I mean, when I left him, my youngest was 1 year old. My second was 2 years old. They were both on nappies. My third was 5 and my fourth was 8. So yeah, you had to protect them like you could not believe because they were little. And so yeah, I fought very hard.
And there were other incidents of abuse against your kids?
To say that again, what other?
I said there were other incidents of
There
abuse?
were, I've got to be very careful sharing their story. I think to me this is their story, and I've got to really be careful what I say and how I say. This is so sensitive. But yeah, they were abused. I think one of the biggest things that I remember my oldest son, he would kick me and kick you in the guts and jump on you and hit you and whatever. And I remember my oldest son coming and climbing on his back, because he was down beating me on his back and saying, Daddy, Daddy, don't hit Mommy, don't hit Mommy. So to me, all those things are absolutely traumatic. Or the one time when he stripped me naked and threw me outside, and I had to sleep in a dog's kennel just to try and keep, and then he would come and say, you do not come out of that dog's kennel, that's where you stay. Or another time I had to sleep on the toilet that's outside. I remember it was July, wrapping myself in a newspaper just to try and keep warm because I was so cold. And then I would sneak around the side, and my older son would sneak me like a little blanket or something through the window. So you can imagine that trauma on my kids, watching their mommy being beaten and the screaming and the shouting and being thrown out, sometimes being thrown on the road, walking up and down.
Could you not reach out to members of the church, members of your community for support?
You know what, the scary thing is I almost felt that because when we went to church or we went to somewhere, I didn't go out of the house much. And if ever I went out, I had to keep my head down. I was never allowed to look at another man. If I looked up and looked at a man, I knew this is it, I've got it. Even things like on the way to church, he would look at me and say, put makeup on. And then I knew the process. I'd take the makeup out and start putting it on, and then he'd spit in his hand and he'd say, take that makeup off, and he'd put a spit in my face and rub it on my face. And so when you're around people from church, you start thinking everyone in church looks at us and we're the happy couple holding hands and loving. And even if we had homestead in a home.
Would he insist on you holding hands when you got to church?
We were the loving, and I had to behave, we're happy and loving. And then even when people came into our home on a weekly basis for home sale, I would be in the room sometimes if I'd been beaten too badly so that people could see, or and he would say that I'm gone to my mother, and I'd have to keep the children dead quiet. So, and people did not know. They just did not know. And I assumed that every man is beating his wife. It's so stupid because obviously they're not. But
well, after 10
I just don't
years,
want to do it,
you decided that enough was enough?
Yep.
Was it your decision? What inspired you or pushed you to make that decision?
My husband had been involved with, I will always say today that a multi-level marketing direct selling company saved my life. They didn't even know it. He started doing, I won't mention the name, but a top multi-level marketing product. And he's good, charismatic. He sold well and grew well. And he won awards. And once a month I'd have to go with him to these awards dinners, or award occasions where they get their check, and I would have to go up next to him and be his partner and dress up, and I loved it. It was my highlight of my month. And I started slowly but surely growing and realizing something's not normal, And then eventually there was a situation when he won something, and I ended up staying in a holiday home, and he went to go and get his awards. And for the first time I had my children alone for 2 days, and I realized I can do this. And I didn't realize it wasn't that when I realized I could do it. I realized I had started slowly getting into an environment where I was just growing and growing and growing, till eventually I realized this is not right, this is not normal. And I literally phoned my mother. She didn't know I was being abused, and I said, Mom, come and get me.
So your family had now moved into South Africa?
They'd moved to South Africa. And I said to my mom, my dad had passed away, and she came here. And I said to my mom, please won't you just come pick me and the kids up? She didn't know that I was coming permanently. And when she got there, I knew I had a short time because he was coming home. Took 2 bags, threw whatever I could in, and just, when my mom got there, I opened the door, threw the bags in, threw the kids in. I said, Mom, go. And she didn't know what was going on. And I ended up getting to her home, my place of safety. Absolute place of safety.
Now, something also happened then. You wanted to go back to your husband.
Oh, absolutely. How sick. And this is where I get to realize how totally screwed up your head can be. Where after, because what happened was my mom was in a little 2-bedroom place with my brother living there. And so the only thing they could give myself and the 4 kids to not disrupt the whole home was my mom took her dining room suite out. She put 1 mattress on the floor. I used to lie with my legs like a starfish and hold each child would hold one of my hand or my feet. And that's how I lived. And I kept on saying, I'm inconveniencing my family. I'm inconveniencing everyone. At least my children had their toys. They had their home. They had their room. How sick. But yeah, that's what I said. I need to go back. And my mother said, over my dead body. She said, I will lock you in this house for 1 month. If you want to go back to him after 1 month, you can do it. And of course, I never did.
Did he try and reach out to you
Oh,
during this
please.
time?
Oh, he came and did so many abusive things at the house and bashing doors and scratching my mother's doors and banging my mother's car in and breaking. Any person that visited, he would scratch their cars with keys. Yeah, he tried everything and anything, but my mother kept me. Good woman.
Well, let's talk about your journey to recovery, if you will, or how you dealt with this trauma, because it's the only way we can possibly describe it.
Yeah, it is trauma. Look at me, I'm crying again 27 years later. I never thought this would happen. I just think because I've got such a most precious mom. Moms, you don't even understand your power, really. Yeah, I think, you know what, the incredible thing is I am a go-getter. I always was a go-getter. And I think I mentioned something about the obsessed, possessed. And what happened, I had the most amazing thing happen to me. I think after that month, I was driving my mother's car, and I got to a traffic light, and I stopped there and I went, oh my gosh, I'm free. And I remember banging my head on the steering wheel and saying, I'm free, I'm free. And it was as if at that moment, I became, and I'm not saying possessed, but I became possessed by Karen, where every part of my fingers, my body got filled with Karen again. And from that day, nothing stopped me. Nothing stopped me. I found me again. And it was just getting out of that environment, and also having good roots. So yeah, and I went on and within 3 months I was building a business. That multi-level marketing company rejected him and came to me. I built I think 600 people within a very short time following me. I grew, and I've always been that way. I'm a dynamic go-getter, if you want to put it that way. So yeah, and from there everything just grew. But 1 year later, everything went down again.
Tell us about that period.
Okay, so what happened was I was called by the welfare on the phone, and they said to me, hello Karen, and I said, hi, are you Mrs. So-and-so? And I said, yes, I am. Who's this? And they said, the welfare. I said, please don't get me involved. I don't want to go there because I've had a year of success, And they said to me, I'm sorry, we have to. There has been an incident where there's been extreme abuse, and we need to prove that there is abuse. And I said, please no. And they said, if you don't come, we need to meet with you. If you don't come, we are going to summons you. And I said, okay. I went and I sat with these welfare people for a whole day. They broke me, they cracked me. They didn't do anything. All they did was they opened my head and my mind, and I realized what I had gone through. I just closed it up and went on because I had 4 children to feed. And so what happened was I realized what I went through. I went home, closed my curtains, pulled my phone out of the wall because we didn't have cell phones, and I just hibernated for 1 month. And what I did was I went and got every single concentration camp movie I could possibly find, and I watched these because you know what? I realized I was like the Jew and he was like the German. And I realized when you watch these Holocaust movies, the way that he dealt with me with everything was exactly the same as the Holocaust. It was putting a gun to your head. It was throwing plates in your mouth, deciding whether you eat or you don't eat, deciding whether you bath or you don't bath. I would have to put my hands like this every night when he came.
He was literally doing these things.
Oh yeah, every night when he got home from work, I'd have to put my hands like that. He would smell my hands up my arms. If my hands smelt of soap, it was fine. Because then what happened was I had been washing dishes. But if he said I couldn't bath a day or clean my teeth, he would check. Then the beatings happened. So it was just sick. Throwing food in your face, kicking you. You just degraded in everything. Stripping you naked, looking at you, saying, you expect me to make love to that? Look at your body. Look at your legs. Look how disgusting you are. I mean, it was just stripping you naked, stripping you of everything that you are. And I realized what I'd gone through. Yeah.
And that journey that you walked to normalcy, or finding yourself again after this year where you were broken down. Can you quickly take us through that?
You know what, I actually realized that I was broken so badly, and you know what I did? I went on a journey of starting to, I kept on saying, why did I stay, why did I go? Why did I stay, why did I go? And I would start putting down things and starting to research and understand, documenting what I've gone through. And then what happened was I started listening, reading, hearing, understanding, speaking to people. I went to a psychologist. The psychologist helped me with so much. And I learned and grew. Out of me learning and growing, I've developed one of the most powerful products that today I work with people, with big groups, speak on stage, work with companies, coaching CEOs, coaching directors. And you know what? The same abuse that I went through, I find in the corporates. The same abuse, not just in the homes. And it's the same taste, the same tone. And sometimes people are sitting in a corporate with their boss who's just abusing them in the same way, stripping them naked. And that's where this product was birthed out of that. I used that as compost to grow me and then now to grow other people. So yeah.
One of our viewers sent in a question and said, at what point do you forgive the other person? Is forgiveness something that you've dealt with? Have you forgiven him? Are you still angry?
Do you know what?
Resentful?
I have forgiven him because I honestly believe that it was more than just him being abused. I think that there is a problem there. So I've forgiven, and I didn't really forgive him for him. I forgave him for me, honestly, and for my children. But I can tell you something now. Do I like him? No. Do I dislike him? I don't really care anymore. I'm not prepared to anger and stuff to be part of to mess up my life. I'm just not, no. But yeah, it's sad, really sad.
And finally, before we end, there are obviously thousands of people that are watching right now.
Yeah.
Thousands of people that are probably going through similar situations. What words of encouragement would you leave with them?
If you do not know who you are, someone is going to tell you who you are and you're going to believe it. If you do not know who you are, you're going to tell yourself you are something and you're going to believe it. There's nothing more powerful than preventing yourself from being abused or abusing. If you actually genuinely know who you are, and that's what you must go for. Find you, the real you, not the become you, who you really are. That's it.
Karen, it's time. We thank you for coming on to Cope today.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Now remember, together we can. Goodbye.